and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan, and today we have got a wildcard video for Game Week 4. So a few of you guys have requested a wildcard video for this week. I know a few of you guys are panicking after maybe a slightly shaky start to this season. I do want to say that maybe a little bit of calm is needed. It's been a weird start to this season and not necessarily reflective of what's going to continue to happen. So what I will say is this wildcard team, if your team already looks kind of similar to this, or you can get it to look kind of similar to this with a -4 or even a -8, then maybe you don't need to wildcard at all. So yeah, just don't worry too much about some of the players that haven't been performing so far. A lot of them are still very good FPL options regardless. This is what I would do if I were to wildcard this game week. I'm not wildcarding, but if I was and my team looked nothing like this, then this is what I would be doing right now, guys. So if you do enjoy this video, please do leave a like, please do subscribe if you're new around here, and I know a lot of you guys are new around here. What are you waiting for? But without further ado, guys, let's have a look at this wildcard team for Game Week 4. Alright, so I've done a team today with a value of 99.5 million, I believe, with a little bit of money in the bank, just in case some of you guys are, you're in a situation where you've had such a bad start that your team value has just plummeted. But if you do have a little bit more team value, there are definitely players in this team where you could consider upgrading using whatever funds you have. You can upgrade them, you can switch things around a little bit, but this would be, I guess, a cheap template team that you could then go forward and work with, and that's kind of what I like to build in these wildcard teams. Something you can have a little bit of a play with, a little bit of a mess around with yourself, with some other options that you might quite like the look of. So let's start off in goal, guys. We have got Sanchez. So I've mentioned a few times before that Robert Sanchez is my favourite goalkeeper at the moment. He would be the goalkeeper I'd be most likely to go for if I could have any goalkeeper in the world right now. So yeah, 4.5 million, so super cheap, which is exactly what I like. Brighton keeping clean sheets, doing very well defensively. I like the idea of being in on the Brighton defence, particularly with these upcoming fixtures. Leeds at home, a game that Brighton have typically done quite well in. We've got Fulham up after that, Leicester and Bournemouth. So some good fixtures coming up for Brighton for quite some time now. And I just feel like the defence that they've shown that they are, I think can keep a few clean sheets in there. Sanchez doesn't really do too well for save points necessarily, but he can potentially get bonus points just because there's not actually many defenders in the Brighton team, or at least not many players listed as defenders, because remember their wing backs at Brighton right now are actually midfielders, who have been listed as midfielders and playing as wing backs in FPL. So, yeah, maybe Sanchez has a little bit more opportunity to get bonus points there, which is kind of interesting. Going on into defence, we've got Trent Alexander-Arnold. I know people are going to say, why would you pick Trent Alexander-Arnold? If you could pick any player in the world, why would you pick him? You can have anyone. You're on a wild card. He's not worth it, is he? I just think he is. Like, I'm not going to judge the first few game weeks too much. Liverpool's defence are going to get better. They are going to improve, and they have got some good fixtures from a defensive point of view coming up, starting with this Bournemouth game. And even if they don't keep a clean sheet every single game week, like, they are going to keep clean sheets sometimes. Even the worst teams keep clean sheets sometimes, so let's not write them off completely. But yeah, I just feel like, look, Trent is a great creative player. He's creating so many chances this season, and I feel like he can get something in some of these upcoming games, even if you exclude clean sheets, which, by the way, they will happen. Like, if you're going to play a player against any team in the world, it's going to be Bournemouth at home. If you play a Nico Williams against Bournemouth at home, you're going to play a Trent Alexander-Arnold, aren't you? So, yeah, there we go. He's here to stay. So if you already have him and you think about removing him, well, I mean, he would stay in my wildcard team, that's for sure. So would Cancelo, by the way. Cancelo, another player who, yes, he's had an off game week last game week, but he's already had a double-digit return this season. And Crystal Palace, then Nottingham Forest. Like, there's some good fixtures coming up for Man City here as well. So, yeah, don't worry about Cancelo too much. No need to panic at all, really, at the moment. He's still, playing for the best defence in the league. Let's see how well they do in the upcoming game weeks. That one game against Newcastle, I don't think really changes that too much. So, yeah, long live Cancelo and his massive amounts of clean sheets that he's going to get throughout this season. And he's super nailed on as well, which is really nice to have a fullback for Man City that's nailed on. We like that a lot. We've got Perisic next, who a lot of people are kind of thinking about considering. I kind of I really like the look of him, and not because he's going to play every game. And I think if you pick up Perisic, you have to accept that he's not going to play every single game. Sometimes he is going to be rotated, and that's just part of the game really with Perisic. But he is also going to get those 15 pointers. And you look at some of these fixtures, Nottingham Forest, Fulham at home, maybe one of those games. It's going to be one of those games where Perisic gets a real insane score. He plays so advanced. He's on set pieces as well. It's just so much to like about him. So even if he gets like 1 point every other game week and 10 points the other game weeks, he's still averaging out on a very, very respectable amount of points for his cheap 5.5 million price tag. So yeah, definitely sticking with Perisic there. And we're going to finish off the defence with Zinchenko, who I just feel like Arsenal have been actually pretty decent and pretty consistent defensively so far. They've just been just a good team. One of the few teams that's not letting us down or hasn't let us down so far, really. So yeah, Zinchenko, why not go in on the Arsenal defence? I don't see why not. Like, if we're going to go somewhere, I think Zinchenko is probably the player with the highest, the highest ceiling in a way. But yeah, Perisic and Zinchenko, these are the two types of player really that I would consider if you had enough budget, maybe upgrading one of them to a Reece James, maybe if you fancy that, or going in a different direction entirely with your defenders. But yeah, Trent, Cancelo, I would say, Sanchez, Trent and Cancelo so far would be absolute locks in a wildcard team for me. Perisic and Zinchenko are kind of a little bit more optional. So again, if your team is kind of looking like this already, then maybe that's a good sign that you don't need to wildcard. Anyway, let's move on into midfield. We've got Salah. Again, he's going to be in a lot of your guys' team, isn't he? So yeah, and then maybe another reason not to wildcard. I feel like I'm making a wildcard video whilst trying to convince you not to wildcard. It's really strange, isn't it? But such is the life of an FPL YouTuber. But yeah, best player probably to own in the entirety for this game week, and probably the best player to own in FPL still. I'm not giving up on Salah yet, and I don't think you guys should either. He's the best player in FPL for a reason, and he gets FPL points even when he's not playing well, even when his team isn't playing well. He will just nick that goal, he will nick that assist, he will get a penalty, something will happen, and he will be all among the FPL points. He'll get bonus points as well because, he's the star of the show, and everything kind of goes through him, and everything is about Salah in that Liverpool team, isn't it? So yeah, still so much to love. I'm not falling out of love with Salah yet, even though maybe a few people around the FPL world are, but I would definitely be sticking with him even in a wildcard team for sure. Going up next, we've got Martin Elliot, the player who's probably shown the best value of any FPL asset so far this season. I know some players have outscored him at a similar price, but Martinelli, to get an Arsenal attacker who is now seemingly nailed on, playing really well, really in good form, getting chances to score and scoring from those chances as well, and his price is rising and rising for a very good reason. So I would be getting in on Martinelli now before he turns out to be like a 7 million player, which he could be in like a month's time. So definitely Martinelli would be in my wildcard team. He is, outside of Jesus, he is the best Arsenal attacker to go for, and we do want to go in on those Arsenal attackers. Great fixtures, great form from the whole team. We do need to invest in Arsenal right now, particularly until their fixtures do swing in about game week 8. So until game week 8, we definitely do want to have as many Arsenal players as we possibly can, because they're they're like the only team that aren't letting us down, or haven't let us down so far, like I keep saying. Rodrigo up next. He is a player who's in the best form of any player in the Premier League. You can count all of the best players, your Salahs, your Haalands, your Kanes, anyone. Rodrigo is in the best form right now as far as I'm concerned. He's playing really, really well. He's the star of the show, and he's just absolutely proving like what an incredible player he is. So yeah, for 6.3 million, even though Brighton at home, Brighton and Hove is an away fixture, it's kind of like you just back the form over the fixture, really, in a situation like this. We wrote Rodrigo off because he had a fixture against Chelsea, and look what he did. Now let's see what he can do against Brighton, who in theory, on paper, should be an easier game, although football is never quite played on paper, is it? After that, though, the fixtures do look good. We've got Everton there, we've got Nottingham Forest as well in a few game weeks' time for Rodrigo. So yeah, definitely would be getting on him if I were on a wild card, which means we've got 3 forwards in this team. So this wild card team is a 4-3-3 formation. Let me show you what we've got up front. We have got Harry Kane. So Harry Kane is the player I would definitely be going for ahead of Erling Haaland right now, just because Kane is super nailed on, where we already know Pep Guardiola has come out and said that Alvarez is going to rotate with Haaland when in those situations where City are playing twice a week. So Haaland is not going to be starting 2 games a week, and we know that we have got 2 Premier League games next week, and we've got Champions League coming up the week after that. So is Haaland going to be prioritised in some of those Champions League games? Probably is, yeah. So there is going to be some heavy rotation. So that kind of makes Kane far more desirable. You'll probably say that, if per 90 minutes, Haaland is going to be the better FPL option. But if we don't have any guarantee of getting 90 minutes of game week from Haaland, and we definitely don't, then Kane is the better of the two to go for, because there's not enough in it between the two players to justify playing a rotation risk player like that. So Kane is going to be our guy. Also, an interesting one that Mahrez is actually on penalties for Man City. We kind of know that now, which is Maybe a cause for concern. When Morris is on the pitch, he's going to be taking penalties for City. Yeah, that's just a little fact for you. But yeah, Kane against Nottingham Forest, really good fixture. Got Fulham in a couple of weeks as well. Some really nice fixtures. Don't write Spurs off. Don't write Kane off quite yet. I think now is going to be his time to shine. His time to kind of prove that he is the better FPL pick than Haaland. I truly believe that. We've got Jesus up next. No brainer. Everyone owns Jesus for a very good reason, because he's in such good form and he is such a good player and he's the centre of everything that Arsenal do, and you can get him for a cheap price of just 8 million, and that's why everyone has him. 8.2 million now, should I say. But yeah, everyone has Jesus. It's just not worth the risk of going without him. He's too good to risk going without, I think, or in too good form. It's just not worth it. So just absolutely go for Jesus. Don't even think about going without him. I know there's always temptation on a wild card to do something different. This is not the thing I would be doing differently. And finally, we're going to finish it off with Tony. So I think Tony has actually been one of the most consistent players so far this season. And we're looking for a few players with those consistent returns that we can really trust. And we don't feel like they're going to go out of form. We know they're pivotal to their own team. He's on penalties as well, which is good. There's just lots of very good things about Tony that we very much like, I suppose. So yeah, I know he's getting a little bit expensive at 7.2 million, but I still think he's definitely worth going for at this point. And if I was to go for a third forward right now, Tony would be the guy. This is the three-man forward line that I actually like the most out of all of the possible combinations, I suppose. So yeah, Tony, consistent performer, nailed on, good fixtures. Everton up next in Game Week 4, which is pretty nice. Leeds in a couple of game weeks, then Southampton as well. There's going to be some FPL points up for grabs here for sure with Tony. He's the centre of the Brentford's team in a way. He's the pivotal player, and there's just a lot to like about him, which is why we pick players, because we like them, right? Let's go on the bench, guys. I've got Ward still, so Ward will stay on the bench. I just feel like he's just the only real 4 million goalkeeper who's going to get you any points whatsoever. I'm not saying he's going to get a lot of points, and I would not be playing Ward. He stays on the bench, but still, you may as well pick a bench goalkeeper who at least is capable of getting FPL points. Like, why not? Andreas makes the bench as well. He's a really decent 4.5 million midfielder, the best in his price bracket as well. So yeah, probably would not look to play him very often, but he's a good backup. If things go terribly wrong, then you always have Andreas as a backup. We've got Nico Williams here, which I think is playable in some games. We just need to see Nottingham Forest improve a little bit defensively, because they are conceding so many chances at the moment. And finally, we've got another Nottingham Forest player. I put in Cafu here just because he's a 4.4 million midfielder. So in this 4-3-3 formation, I think you can afford to have one dead spot, kind of one slot where you don't expect a player to ever play. Like, it's going to be very rare that you're going to rely on your third bench player. So you may as well just go for the cheapest possible player in that position. So I would recommend on a wild card, if you're going for a 4-3-3 formation, having that second midfielder as just the cheapest possible, a 4.4 million, which there are available. There's lots of 4.4 million midfielders available right now. I put in Cafu just because he's got an FPL point already, and he doesn't really, he doesn't play for any of the big teams. It's unlikely that we're ever going to be like, oh my god, we've used up all of our Nottingham Forest slots. I don't imagine we'd be tripling up on Forest too often. So yeah, I put him in there for the sake of this video. And there you go, guys. That is the team. Let's slap the captain's armband on Salah with the vice captain on Jesus as well. And I think that's a very good kind of template. If your team looks like this, don't wildcard. If your team looks similar to this, see if you can fix your team with maybe a hit or two, possibly, before considering wildcarding, because I think most of us are probably quite close to this team already, if I'm completely honest. And if I could wildcard right now, this would be the team I'd go for. Obviously, I've got a little bit more team value than this, so I'd maybe make a couple of upgrades. Maybe Zinchenko to Reece James, for example, is something that I might do. Yeah, aside from that, I like this team a lot. I think this would be a really good one to go forward with, but only if your team doesn't look like this already. Let's run it through the Fantasy Football Hub My Team tool, because I know a few of you guys like seeing that, just to see how many points this team is predicted. Okay, so this team is rated at 92% as a team rated. It's predicted 71.8 points this game week, which is a lot. A few things to note, I guess, is that Rodrigo and Perisic are not predicted very high points by the algorithm, and you can kind of understand why, because Rodrigo was not predicted to be a first-team player at the start of the season, and Perisic has already been rotated. So those parts of the algorithm, I think, I've not quite worked it out yet. I feel like Rodrigo and Perisic are going to be algorithm busters. They're going to be the stat busters in a way that are really going to outscore what computers think they will score. So those are the two risks, I guess, going against the machine, I suppose. But the rest of the team all predicted super high points, all really high predicted points players. So yeah, loads to love all across the board. Even on the bench, you know, Andreas is predicted a decent amount of points. Ward is, Nico Williams, Cafu not so much, but his name is Cafu, which is just a heroic name, and he's only 4.4 million. So why the devil not? I think this is a good team, and if you can go through the next couple of game weeks, game week 5, again, quite a lot of predicted points, 62.3. You can maybe even go a little bit higher than that if you kind of made a transfer, but you can see players like Rodrigo predicted to get a decent amount of points versus Everton, which is an improvement, I suppose, and going through 65.8 predicted points. If you scored these points consistently every game week, even game week 7, 62, if you get 60 points per game week, you'll be absolutely flying. So yeah, this team is predicted to score a lot of points. So I think it's a pretty good one. If you do want to go check out the My Team tool on Fantasy Football Hub, you can have a look and check that out. Try it out for absolutely free. Just click on the link in the description. If you want to unlock the full version along with all of the other Fantasy Football Hub tools, you can also get 30% off. Just follow the link through to the payment stages, or don't. It's kind of up to you completely, really, but I definitely would recommend going to check this out just to see what your team is rated at. And there we have it, guys. That is the end of videos for this game week. Make sure you go check out some of the other game week 4 videos that I've made. There's been loads, and I think some of them are going to be quite useful to you as well, particularly the 100 experts video. And I would recommend checking out the strategy stream as well, particularly if you had a bad game week 3 and you just want to calm down a little bit. I go through a lot of the kind of psychology of these kind of strange game weeks in the strategy stream, so go check that out if you want to. I will be doing a deadline stream tomorrow morning. I hope to see a few of you guys there. If you haven't liked this video already, I really would appreciate it if you did that, and do subscribe if you're new around here. But yeah, there we go. That's the end of the video. That's the end of the week pretty much. I hope to see a few of you guys on the deadline stream tomorrow morning, but aside from that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later, mates. Bye bye.